Hello, I'm Michael Apted. I'm the director of 42 Up. I've been involved in the project since its very beginning in 1964, first as a researcher, and then in all the subsequent 7-yearly visits as producer and director. Let me start by giving a bit of background into how the whole series of films came into being.
It's a very special occasion.
It originated out of Granada Television, which was part of the Independent Network in England. And they were running a weekly current affairs program called World in Action, which was interesting insofar that it was very political, very much to do with social issues, very blue-collar, very popular. It was run by an Australian called Tim Hewitt, and he had this idea to do a special film about England and about children. England was in the middle of a cultural upheaval in 1963-1964. It was very heady days. London and Liverpool were in many ways the cultural centres of the world. What with the pop music, the Beatles, the Stones, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Freddie and the Dreamers, fashion, Mary Quant and Twiggy, everything that was happening in England. Did this mean that because some people could conquer the world, that everybody might have a fair chance to do what they wanted to do? Or was it still true that the accident of birth brought power, money, and success? He wanted to examine the English class system, by which the society or the class into which you were born really determined the opportunities you had in life. So were children made into winners or losers by class divisions? Or was the old order changing with all the fun and games that was going on in England in the 60s? Hewitt explained it to his team very dramatically. He said, let's put a camera on the roof of the Granada building, which was 6 stories high. He says, put 20 people on the street, ask 3 to step forward, zoom in on those 3 and say, these people will have a successful, enriching life, and the others won't, and here's why. Well, Hewitt was a journalist and not a filmmaker, and he knew there was a lot more to it than that. So he hired Paul Armand, who was a distinguished Canadian director, to make 7 Up, with me and a colleague, Gordon MacDougall, both of us fresh out of Granada training scheme. We were assigned to research and find the children, and we were given 3 weeks to do it. We wanted to get a good cross-section of English society, so each of the classes could speak for themselves. The idea being that out of the mouths of 7-year-old children, we might learn some truths about English society. What they thought about each other, their ambitions, their thoughts on money, colour, race, sex. They might give some insight into whether English society was indeed changing, rather than show up with a load of educationalists, politicians, psychologists or whatever. Let these children tell us their dreams, their ambitions, and see what that would tell us. So Gordon and I were given, as I said, 3 weeks to find this group of children. So we started out by going to the local educational authorities to find out who'd be interested in helping us. And the authorities put us on into specific schools, and then the schools put us on to teachers, and then the teachers brought us their finest 7-year-olds. So Gordon and I would troop around these schools and visit the 7-year-old classrooms. We went to rich and poor schools, to urban and rural, to find children, some that had strong family backgrounds, those with hardly any family at all. And in the 3 weeks we chose, I think it was 20. We went out to film them. Some worked better than others, and when we put the film together, we narrowed it down to 14. And it's those 14 that have stayed with us over the 35 years that we've been involved in the project. At the time, it was never intended that this would be what it turned out to be, a long-running series. It was just going to be a one-off film. So we had no deal with the children, no contract with them or their parents or the school, and this was, I think, subsequently going to haunt us. Because, as I said, there was never any intention of making more than one film. And what grew into this, for me, a life's work, really happened by chance.
But the only thing I ever done was I planted them 3
So,
trees.
one of the challenges of doing this series, and I, as I say, took over the film on 14, or 7 plus 7 it was called, has been to persuade the people to take part in each film, and it's not always been successful. Things change from film to film, but I've always managed to get at least 11 of the 14 to take part. Some are hard to persuade, some not. Now, while I've been talking, Tony from the East End of London has been on, and he's someone who's always been one of the most supportive of this subject. I think the films mean a lot to him, and he's always, I think, been very open and frank. I found him in the East End of London because we were looking for children from impoverished backgrounds, and he came from one of the more impoverished parts of London. And since we were based in London, London was always going to be the centre of the operations. As you see, some of the 7-year-old footage of him in school really set the style, the tone of the film, some of the more memorable images. So Tony's always been a good friend. Here he is, playing around in class with his friend Michelle. He's always been very helpful. I haven't always been that helpful to him. So one of the traps I found over the years doing the film is the inclination to second guess what's going to happen to people if you want to play God. And with him, I got the very strong feeling after the first 3 films, 7, 14, 21, that life would be tough for him. He had these rough beginnings in the East End, violence in the school fields, on the playing fields. He failed in his dreams as a jockey, and at 21 he was working on the dogs, carrying bets for the punters at the dog track. And I could see as life went on, things might go wrong for him. So at 21, what I thought might be very clever and anticipate what might happen to him, I asked him to take me out in his cab on a tour of the East End of London crime spots, thinking that maybe by the time he was 28, he might be in trouble and I might be visiting him in one of Her Majesty's prisons, and I would have laid the grounds for this, but I was wrong. He didn't go to any life of crime whatsoever. He found some real strength in his family roots, in his family background, in his children, and he put his energies into that. And he and I talked about it quite frankly, and he said to me, Michael, he said, you can never judge a book by its cover. So that was a pretty hard lesson for me, not to try and prejudge it, not to have an agenda, to not try and figure out what is going to happen, but pay attention to what's in front of me. You can see some of the best stuff in the film is with him and his wife, Debbie. And with that, I use wives and significant others a lot, but I had to draw the line. How many people could I have in the film who weren't the main characters? And it's terrifying of getting out of control. So I limited it to those who were very nearest and dearest. I kept away from interviewing children, just used the children to show how time was passing, how life was changing, how people were growing up. But basically I just kept the interviews to the 14 and their significant others. So this section coming up now is one of the more exciting and electrifying when Tony reveals his infidelities to me, his infidelities, and his marriage with Debbie. Stuff I wonder whether they've even much talked about amongst themselves. So it's a measure, I think, of his trust in me that he's able to speak so openly about these issues. Tony has always been one of the most memorable of all the uppers. He's popular, he's funny, he's emotional, and you just get the feeling he's telling you how it is. And when people come up to me to ask me about who's doing what, Tony's always one of the people that comes first to mind. So I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of Tony and pick you up in the next chapter with Susie.
But situations arise that I have had regretful behaviour various times. But through no, and that was it. That's you know, I'm not lying about the fact, you know. I mean, you can always cover it up and suggest other things, but it's, you know, it's true and let it be true.
You caught him?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, you know, it was touch and go whether we carried on from it or not. You know, we sort of went for a very traumatic time.
But then again, I mean, letters never seen cast the first stone. I mean, it just doesn't happen with a taxi driver living in Essex. It happens with MPs, etc., etc. I mean, you know, I'm not going to hide behind any trees and suggest, you know, I'm as holier than thou, which no doubt I'm not. All I'm suggesting is this is what real life is all about. If I've been caught with my hand in the till, that's fair enough. I'll pay the consequences. And the consequences is ironing out the details and the problem with my wife and my marriage, and hopefully, eventually, get it in the right lane and put it back on the tracks. You know.
Why did you forgive him?
Because at the time, I felt that there was still something in the relationship, you know, and there was 3 children involved here as well, which is not easy when you've got 3 young children. And there was obviously still something between me and Tony, and it's not easy to walk away. I could have walked away. I felt it's silly, but when it happened, I felt very strong. And I could have walked away. But it's not been easy to try again, to get over it, the hurt, because I've never done it and I've never been unfaithful. And that's what I found really hurtful. And I feel that I'm a good wife and I didn't deserve it.
All I understand is dog prices, girls, knowledge, road, streets, squares, and mum and dad and love. That's all I understand. That's all I want to understand.
Why the ones cooling the night?
4.550s, 4.5.
At 21, Tony was earning a bit extra as a bookies runner at Hackney Wick.
Yeah. Go on, Queen, chase it. Go on, boy. Go on, Queen, inside. On the out, Queen. I've just come back here after about 2 years since they've stopped racing at the Wick, and it's really a travesty. I look around the Wick and I can still close my eyes and I hear all the voices of the bookmakers, and I still I've got visions of me running up and down the stairs trying to earn a few quid running all the bets. And I've come back here again and it makes me feel like crying.
So the East End's changing, isn't it?
It's very much so. It's the way of the world. It's very cosmopolitan now in Bethnal Green and the East End, you know, and the East End tradition as we knew it, it's sort of the pie mash shops and sort of fish and chip shops, you know, closing down type of thing, you know, and for me it's quite sad, you know, but I mean, if that's what they call progress, well, so be it.
Tell me about the family. I mean, are you fairly closely knit?
Well, I love them all. There's not one I don't love more than other than my mum, obviously. But your mum is the root of the sort of tree. You love your mum best.
By the time he was 35, both Tony's parents had died.
I'm at the graveside, I'm talking to her, you know, little things, and I've got all images running through my mind, saying like, Tony, go downstairs, get me 5 weights, you know, 1 and a penny. And I used to go in the shop. She used to throw the cotton in an air curler over the landing. And I used to tie the cigarettes on this bit of cotton, and she used to pull them up. And she'd go, I'll see her in the end. Thanks, Tone, see you after school. Be good. And that's the way it was. Even now, I'll get emotionally sentimental over my mum and dad. It's just because I felt the weekends they could have had over here and the later part of their life. It would have been nice to know that their last days were me type of thing, but it wasn't to be.
The Prussians. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. They're nuts. Just have to touch them.
I don't want to change, because if I change, it proves the other Tony Walker was all fake. You know, I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses and make myself any more than, you know, what I can capable of doing. But I mean, I can only go so far. I'm only a cabbie. I mean, I'm not exactly a movie star, but I've done as well as I can go. And I think this is about the limitations for me now. So I'm happy with what I've got. If anything else comes along, it's a bonus.
Tommy, do you have any boyfriends, Susie?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
He lives up in Scotland, and I think he's 13. And I'm rather lonely up there because he used to go to school, but we used to play.
Susie was also from London, but from very much the other side of the tracks from Tony.
And we go in, and then
I found Susie in a very exclusive Kensington preparatory school for young ladies. And she willingly at that time joined in the fun of being filmed at 7. But from then on in, she's been very reluctant and awkward about taking part.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't
think
given
the
it a
most
thought because I'm very
stressful
very
thing about doing the films for me is persuading them all to do it.
But then, you know, you get a certain
And I share the responsibilities of my colleague Claire Lewis, my co-producer. Claire has been on the film since 28 up, so she's done 35 and 42 with me as well.
Saw you at 21, you were nervous.
We don't see much of the subjects between the 7 years of the filming, but we do keep in touch. And Claire and I, between us, have built relationships with all of them. I have a particularly strong relationship with Susie and her family. And in a sense, I make it my business during the times that we're not filming to keep in touch and to foster our relationship and to take an interest in her life and for her to take an interest in mine.
We've never yet
so that when the 7-year knock on the door comes, they're not all
prepared for it. It's very hard to actually say what it is that goes on between a couple.
As I said, there was no contract, no payment, no agreements when it started. Now I do pay them. I pay them all the same amount of money, and if the films win any prizes, then I share the money out amongst them. But with Susie, as you can see, at 14, she was very hostile, and at 21, difficult, and it was only through the good offices of her mother that she even showed up at all. So from then on in, my task has been to convince her and all those that are reluctant to take part that the project is worth doing.
Thomas and Oliver.
They didn't ask to do it, they didn't ask to be in it, they had no choice really. They were railroaded into it by parents and teachers, and they say to me, when's it ever going to end? But I'm very anxious to keep her in it. Women are not very well represented in the film. Of the 14, only 4 were women, which was more a sign of the times in 1964, when who would have thought that 10 years after that England would be run by a woman Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher. But at that time in 64, women weren't very much at the centre of politics or any branch of society really. So I'm very, very anxious to keep her in the series, and it's been a struggle.
Having been quite a shy
Going back to the fact that there's so few women in the programme, I think, had we known when we set out to make the film in 1964 that we were in for the long haul, we might have taken much more care.
It's a sort of love-hate
Subsequently, we did a Russian and American version of the films, where we knew that we were going to be there for a long time, and so we were able to look into the future of both great countries and figure out what would be happening over the next 50 years, and then plan our choice of subjects accordingly. In Russia, we were extremely lucky. We started the film just before the empire broke up, so we were pick the children geographically from all over the place. Started with the Baltics to Siberia, into the Caucasus, Russia itself, and the Russian 7-Up became a living testament to the breakup of the empire. It's amazing what's happened to those people in subsequent years. And planning the American version, we were able to look as much as you can to the future and take the issues which we thought would become important, the breakdown of inner cities, the ethnic changes in America that are happening that we could anticipate, the difference between North and South parts of America. But in 1964, when we were doing this, we had no such plans, so we were very much living off the land. So it's very important to me to keep someone like Susie in the film. She's also had a lot of very dramatic changes, and particularly from 21 to 28, when she seemed to grow and mature out of all recognition. Cigarette smoking, hollow-eyed and whatever at 21. She was this nurturing mother by the time she was 28, and a lot of that had to do with her marriage.
It is terribly hard,
and I'm also very dependent on the families to help me get the subjects to be in the film, and her husband Rupert and the family.
My mother had been ill before,
been very positive
but when
about
I started
it,
the
and
course,
really
I didn't know quite how ill she was then.
To gain the trust
and
and confidence
found out she had
of Susie.
terminal cancer when I was halfway through
So
the
it's
course.
a tricky business, the trickiest
And
of
I did
all,
wonder whether I
keeping
could
them
carry on, because it was
together,
quite
the whole
difficult
group,
going to the
in the
course every
film,
week
and not let it
and listening
fall
to other
apart.
people, what they'd gone through. But in a
When I
strange way,
shoot the
it
film,
helped
I spend a very limited time with them all.
So I came through
And if they're a bit
the course,
reluctant to
and
take
my mother
part,
died
like
just
Susie,
after
then
that.
it's hard really to
But I
find
did find it a help
the
doing it,
vignettes of life
because I just felt I wasn't
to portray
alone,
them.
and I think that's
She's not that
the
willing
whole
to go
point
out
of
in
grief
public and be
counselling, is
filmed,
that people
so
feel
usually
very alone
I do
when
most
they've
of it
lost someone very
within
close
her
to
household.
them. And a lot of
I
people
need to get
don't
a
have
snapshot
someone
of her
to
life as I
turn
find
to.
it in
Well,
every
as
7
any child
years,
going
and
through their parents,
I try and persuade her
picking
to
up age
get out
14
and
was a
about,
very
and in
vulnerable
42
age,
I
and it
managed to
does-
convince
and
the
it does
family
catch
to
you up,
go
but
to a bowling alley, and I also
to
managed to
get
convince her
over it.
to
I'd
give me
never had a
access
very
to
close
the
relationship with
bereavement
my
counselling
parents.
that she's talking about.
I didn't really know them very well.
But
in
anyway,
the
she's
last
also
few years
a very
of her life,
popular
we had become
member of
closer, and I think that's
the
what I
series. I
resent,
think
that I
it's
lost her when I did,
the
because
dignity
I
she
was just
has
beginning
and the
to really build a
grace she has
relationship
under
with her.
pressure that appeals to people.
When he was 35, Rupert made a big career move.
I was a partner in quite a big law firm, and I resigned from that and set up my own company. I tend to specialise in refurbishing old buildings and converting them into offices.
It was a very difficult time when...
So Susie is one of the most popular members of the series, and I think it's her dignity and grace that attracts people.
He'll be out of this.
So as I leave you to watch the rest of her, look out for the famous rabbit shot, which was when she was 14.
It's crossed my mind
She was
quite
so
hard.
reluctant to take part in it, and
we
so
could lose
difficult to
this.
interview,
I've never ever
that we
wanted
set
to
the camera up in the
business
camera and
fair,
walked away from it, so she would think we weren't filming.
Ultimately,
During the course of the interview, her dog came up behind
paid
her,
off, and the company's
ran
doing
into
well.
the flower bed and got hold of a rabbit and started wringing its neck.
What sort of things
And the camera and Tony Mann
Ride,
managed to
swim,
pull
play
focus without looking
ping
down
pong.
the viewfinder. He just did it by instinct.
Let's play
A
croquet.
remarkable piece of
Like
filmmaking.
that.
But it sometimes shows the tricks you have to get people to
I
participate
did
in
have a
things like
privileged
this, especially when they're
background, but on the other hand, I
spotty and
was sent away
14.
to boarding school.
I'll pick
very
you
young,
up
which I
again in
find
the
very
next one,
hard to cope
Simon.
with, and I'm sure my parents did it for what they felt was the right reason. I just felt rejected, which is why I never wanted to force that onto my children.
What do you want most out of life?
To be happy and get on with life. I mean, I don't want to just sit back and let it always pass. I mean, you don't know how long you've got your life for. I mean, you could run over by a bus tomorrow, so you've got to make the most of it while you've got it.
If I could have it over, I would change my life from 14 to 21. Those years were not good for me. Like any other child with divorced parents at 14, I felt very lost, bewildered. I would have made more of my education instead of rather throwing it away because I just thought I knew it all and didn't want to be bothered. But I can't turn the clock back, so I just have to bury that and think, well, okay, it was a time in my life that was unhappy and move on.
Two of the boys are coming into that period of their lives. Are you watchful of that for them?
I am watchful of that, but I hope they have a more stable home life than I had at that age. And I don't take for granted the home life that Rupert and I have tried to build for them. All I want is to be here long enough, to be fit and healthy long enough to see my children grow up to be independent people. What I really couldn't cope with was if I died before they were grown up. It's the one thing I think every parent dreads, is not living long enough to see their children into adulthood.
Excellent!
What do you think about rich people?
Not much.
Tell me about them.
Well, they think they can do everything without you doing it as well.
Simon was brought up in a children's home, the only child of a single parent.
Rich people, they have all different things, have everything they want. Whereas
Simon,
people,
we founded a children's home in London,
and they know they haven't got
just
nothing.
as we were looking for
so
people from different areas of the country and from different educational standards and from different financial parts. We're also looking for people with different emotional needs, so we thought it would be interesting to find young children who had been taken away from their parents, put into a foster home. And so we found two, Simon and Paul, who we'll meet later. And this is Simon's story.
It's not a serious matter.
Simon is someone who illustrates how volatile this project is.
She's 21.
He appeared in 7, 14, 21 and 28, but I lost him at 35. Much as I tried even to find him, to talk to him, he didn't want to know. He wouldn't return my phone calls, he wouldn't answer letters, he just disappeared. Because I never give up, Claire and I went back to him at 42, and he didn't take a lot of persuading to take part. He seemed anxious to regroup with us. And I think the reason was clear, that he'd become divorced at 35. His first wife, Yvonne, was very hostile to the program. He was in the middle of a difficult divorce with 5 children, and just simply didn't want to talk about it. He was embarrassed about it. And the woman he was to marry, Vianetta, when it came to us to ask him to be in 42 Up, she was very positive about it and very supportive of it. I was so desperate at 35 to get hold of him that I even sent Tony around to talk to him through the letterbox, but it was to no avail. But it's an important lesson for me that even if people refuse to be in the films, and we'll get to that later on, I still try and keep relationships in case times change, and people's situations change, and maybe they'll be a little more open about appearing in the program.
There's a bit of both of us, actually.
I wanted him, like I want all of them, because losing one means one part of the family disappears. But obviously he's unique to the film. He's the only ethnic in the film, which again is a piece of imbalance, but again, looking at England in 1964, not so misunderstandable. He turned out in 14 and 21 to be the heart and soul of the film. He was the one that really carried it. His stories of not having a father and what are you missing? I'm missing a bike. Audiences opened up to him, offered him all sorts of monies, and hundreds of bikes appeared and all this. And we try and protect the anonymity of people. When people offer gifts, offer advice, send letters, send money, we always pass it on to them, and it's up to the subject whether they accept it, answer it, acknowledge it, or simply pretend it didn't happen. But we never give the full names or addresses of the people in it. We always try and protect them from particularly
the anger that I've had for how many years is...
So
it's been
Simon has always brought a lot of great emotional power to the films. As a young man, he said, without a father and living with his mother and stuck in a dreary job, and then suddenly marrying and having a lot of children very quickly. But at 28 I could see that things were getting difficult for him because he was very guarded. I couldn't get anything out of the interview. I tend to do very, very long interviews, so hopefully people will become comfortable with me, and in some ways even get the idea that I'm not filming it, that if we talk and talk and talk, it will break down barriers. But I couldn't get anything much out of him at 28. I even did something I've never done before or since. I went back and did another whole interview. When I do these interviews, as I say, they're very long, and I try and cover as many bases as I can. I try and talk about everything. I don't prepare them for it. If they don't want to talk about something, it's up to them to tell me. Otherwise, I feel everything is fair game. So I do long interviews. I have a huge amount of material. I have a colossal ratio. Maybe for every foot of film I shoot 30 feet. And as I say, I never prepare or rehearse them, because I learned early on in this business of doing documentaries and interviewing people that too often in the research period you get great stuff from them. You're sat in the car and they're talking away, and when you come to do it, they've already done it, and it's lost its originality, it's lost its freshness. So I call that the floor of the car syndrome. So I never prepare them, I never go over stuff. I like to catch them by surprise, if you like, or in a more benign way. I want their genuine and initial response to the questions. I don't want them to have thought about it too much.
Walls did close down.
So I never spend that much time with them. With someone like Simon, who lives in London, I probably film him over a couple of days. I spend 5 or 6 hours doing the interview, then a day and a half going out and about with him as much as he'll let me, as much as we can think of. Doing scenes around the house, scenes out and about. So the actual shooting of the up films isn't really the toughest part. If I only spend 2 days with them, I can get it done in under a month. The editing is difficult. That takes 3 or 4 months, and it's the preparation that's the most harrowing. After about 5 years, I begin to start worrying about it, getting nervous about it, thinking who's going to do it, who's not going to do it, and making the initial phone calls. I don't want to make the phone calls too early because I have too much time to fret about it. I don't want to make the phone calls too late. Otherwise they'll read in the papers that it's coming up and they'll say, well, why didn't you let me know? Why am I the last to know? So it's a very difficult decision when Claire or I go to them and say, look, it's that time. I'd like to do it, and we're going to do it over the next 2 or 3 months. What do you think? And they always give me a pretty hard time, even those that like doing it. They like to get their revenge on me for forcing them or being part of it at the very beginning when they had no say in the matter.
She loved that. Always dragging me around the galleries.
There's a very powerful shot in
Was it difficult moving from the home back
coming up of Simon's mother, which again is fairly unusual to deal with parents. I try not to do that because, again, it can get out of hand. I don't want to deal with their stories or their children's stories. But it does help to mark the passage of time, and as the subjects change less and less in the way they look, and it becomes harder to delineate what generation I'm in. Someone who's 28 doesn't look much different from 35, doesn't look that much different from 42.
She died in 1990.
So I use pictures of the children and of the mother, and the mother is a sad story, as you're hearing now, just to help us get a sense of the passage of time. I worried a lot that the films might become boring after the excitement of 7, 14, 20. Look how they've all grown up. look how they've changed, look how their faces have changed. Oh, I didn't know you'd turn out like this, like that. But after 28, people look much the same, but they didn't get boring because I think people's emotional development is as, if not more powerful than their physical development.
I don't like what you're doing, just agree.
So just going back to the interviews, I think the strength of the interview is the strength of my relationship with them. I don't pretend that I'm a fly on the wall. I'm there, they talk to me, they address me by name. And I've gone way beyond, I think, being an objective or dispassionate filmmaker. I'm involved in their lives. I care about them. What happens to them concerns me.
It depends what you want, innit?
So I think with Simon, what's exciting is his development over these last 7 years.
To be honest,
a dramatic change in his life through his marriage to Vianetta. And I think, like all of them, he dramatizes the power of the ordinary life. What's pleased me a lot is that, although there's a lot wrong with the balance of the people when we first chose them, we did choose ordinary people, ordinary in the best sense of the word, not eccentrics, not characters, maybe other than Tony. So I think they're dramas that everybody can relate to. We can see ourselves in them. They're not someone particularly special or particularly gifted or particularly wealthy or whatever. They're ordinary people, and that I think is why the films are successful, is they're accessible to an audience because it is the drama of getting through the day, the drama of ordinary life. So I'll leave you with Simon, and then we'll meet with Bruce.
I feel okay just getting on with life, just sort of keeping up. But I know if I really wanted to, I could get on. It only take a little spark in me to do it.
What's the biggest influence Vianetta has on you?
I think really motivation, because before I never really pushed myself. She looks after me. She doesn't just push me, she looks after me. You know, she would never let anything be wrong for me. She always makes sure that if I go down the road, I look alright. If I go anywhere, I look alright. You know, and I do the right thing. And it makes me feel that there's somebody out there that really, really wants me.
The stone, the stars, the start. The stones for starters, for stand.
Yeah, speak up.
When he was 7, Bruce was at a pre-preparatory boarding school. At 14, St Paul's in London.
They don't sort of enforce being upper class and things like that.
So this is Bruce,
you know,
who I found in a boarding school in Hampshire, which is about 50, 60 miles outside London. We wanted a contrast to Simon because Bruce too was taken away from his parents, but voluntarily they put him into a boarding school when he was 7. So it would be interesting to see how a child in that environment would cope. So again, it's just part of the tapestry that we were trying to weave here. Children with strong family connections and others where the parents decided for whatever reason to send the children away, and it may seem strange, but in England it's not unusual for children as young as 7 to be sent away to school and just come home from holidays.
I won't carry on with mathematics. I don't think I'll be a teacher.
My own memories, my own life is very tied in with this film, and I will never forget when I was researching Bruce and visiting Bruce's school. It was my 22nd birthday, and I was walking down this country lane to his school. At 28, he was teaching. And I thought, this isn't a bad life, this filming thing. I'd like to do this. This may be a career worth pursuing, and I must do whatever I can to keep it going. It seemed at that time that it could be a serious career, a serious job, a serious life. I'd come from university, I'd got a law degree. I'd done a lot of theatre, I was in love with the cinema, but I had no connection with show business, so I had no way of getting into it. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer, they wanted that security for me, and so I read law at Cambridge for a year. In some ways to appease them, my dream was to get into the entertainment industry, but there didn't seem to be any way into it. I wanted to go into theatre, but every theatre I wrote to was only interested if I had experience. How was I going to get experience? And round and round in circles. And then I got offered this traineeship at Granada Television, and my first job after some orientation was to be on this film and find these children. And I remember on that birthday thinking those thoughts, and those thoughts have stayed with me forever, and I always recall them when I watch this part of the film and see Bruce. It took, I think, 10 years for my parents to figure out that it was a proper job.
It was a chance to go from promotion to be
at that moment, while I was working on this film, I knew they were wrong. This could be a life worth living.
I agree with the Conservatives about what they were doing with the black.
I think Bruce is so interesting to me because, in some ways, he's the exception to the class rule.
I think we can show the way.
Most people in the film tend to seem to have stayed in their own class, done very much, at least superficially, what's been predicted for them. But Bruce didn't do that. Bruce went to a very smart pre-boarding school, as you saw. He went to an excellent public school, which is not a public school, a very private school, and then he went to Oxford University. But he didn't stay in that system. He decided not, even if he was going to teach, he wasn't going to teach in the system he grew up in. He went into public education to try and help the disenfranchised, the poorer. I think he says at 7 he wants to give his money to the poor. Well, I think he did. He turned his back on the riches that he could have made out of a private education to help the disadvantaged. The other great thing that Bruce has done for me is he got me to travel.
Yes, I haven't got married or whatever.
He was 35, he was teaching in Bangladesh, so off we went to find him in Bangladesh. I'm pretty vigorous about only shooting what's happening every 7 years. So it's a question of luck. What's happening to that person for 7 years? It might be a dull period in their life, it might be an exciting, dramatic period, and in this particular instance I was lucky. He was in Bangladesh, which I'd never been to, and adds, I think, a whole colour and dimension to the film. The film has a large international audience, so the more international I can make it without compromising what it's about, the better. It was a very tough time in Bangladesh. There were riots going on, anti-American, anti-Western riots. It was the time of the war against Iran, and the Muslim countries were hostile to the West. I remember the British Council said, don't go, it's too dangerous, but we, intrepid as ever, decided to go, and we didn't hit any trouble, although there was some rioting in the streets. But we went and we brought stuff back.
She teaches at Bruce's school.
The other area where Bruce is unusual is, having just said how rigorous I am about the 7-year gap, and not, in any sense, violating that I did in this particular instance which you're looking at now, his marriage.
Where was on the sofa?
With Bruce, one of the intriguing things with Bruce was that he never seemed to be interested in girls, never had a girlfriend. Frankly, it was worrying me and worrying him, and I suppose I was thinking, what is his sexual orientation? I was thinking, if he isn't married, by the time he's 35, 42, am I going to ask him what his orientation is? Is he gay, or is he just not interested in women? And I remember ringing him up the year before I was going to do it, and he said, "Oh, Michael, how nice to hear from you. Guess what? I'm getting married."
Didn't have a lot of things that you normally have at weddings, like the cars
Heaven.
and photographers.
So I was so excited by that. And I said, "Well, when are you getting married?" So in about 3 weeks. So I said, "I have to have this. I have to go and shoot this." So I was in America, but Claire went off and shoot the scenes that you're looking at now. But in a sense, I broke my rule, but I couldn't
ways, I'm
resist
better
it.
fed, better looked after.
I wanted to keep it strict because early on I'd watched an East German version of this, which started about the same time.
Sort of financial organisation,
and they didn't keep the discipline that I kept. They didn't do it every 7, 6, 5 years. They just did it when something important happened to the person, whether there was a birth, a marriage, a death, or someone graduated from college or whatever. Looking at the film, the East German film, it was so confusing because you never really knew where you were. It's confusing enough to watch 14 people go through what's now 6 generations. But at least if I mark it out at 7-year intervals, at least I think there's a slight chance that you know where you are. So I don't think I'll break the rule again, but it was irresistible with Bruce. So I did break ranks, and I did film him maybe about 9 months before I should have done.
Way into the future.
A lot of the monopolies were
kind of very sensitive.
So Bruce too has been supportive. He's one of those that I can always rely on, and Penny, his wife, has been the same. And I think again there's been a real measure of openness and frankness. I mean, you never know talking to people in life, let alone on film, how frank they're being,
and I can remember being happy,
whether they're telling you what they really think, or what they want you to think, or what they'd like you to think. You never can tell. But I think Bruce doesn't hold back very much. He's good-humoured and good-natured, and what I love about him is his compassion. He showed it at 7 and has never left it.
I'm not talking about love.
Of all of them, I think he cares as much about his fellow humans as anybody. And he really does think that people deserve to have as good a life as they can get. He'd do what he can to make the lives of those around him
more mature in a way,
as fruitful
because you're
and
not
as happy
thinking
as he
about
can.
yourself all the time, you're thinking about somebody else.
The interview technique too, I've sort of developed a bit over the years. I tend to favour the portrait style because I knew once I started, when I saw 14 up, and I could see the potential power of the film, juxtaposing different generations, that just to look at people's faces as they grew up was fascinating, and you didn't want to be too clever or arty about it. So most of the interviews are portrait style, but more and more as I've got into the project and documentary styles have changed and I want to keep up with the times, I've also done interviews on the hoof, interviews with people in situations, interviews when Bruce is teaching, or mobile interviews, or interviews on the move, and I think that just brings the changes a bit.
Fine, thank you, dear.
It makes it maybe a little more complicated to edit in subsequent generations, but I think it adds a vitality to the filmmaking.
Swoop and hurling in a ball.
So that's Bruce.
So
enjoy Bruce,
youth, it's
and I'll see you in a bit.
Not so fast!
I think so, yeah. I don't know whether they're going to move any of them.
We may have children, I don't know. I mean, if in 7 years' time or so we're living in a slightly bigger house with a young family, that would be nice. I mean, I don't want to pin all my hopes on it and nothing happens. We are quite old. I can see bringing up, say, teenage children when in your 50s might be a bit strange.
Looking back on your life, halfway through, say, I mean, what regrets do you have?
Now I'm, married to a lovely person. That kind of takes out some regrets that may have been, or I missed my chance there or something. And you never know what the future will hold for you. And I think I'm lucky to have found Penny.
He's the nicest person I've ever met. He's just somebody you can rely on the whole time.
Oh, I might quote that sometime.
No, he's not the kind of man you would ever actually have any doubts about.
Some people from Africa come here. but they when they go, they put their clothes on.
Jackie, Lynn and Sue all grew up in the East End of London and were friends in the same junior school.
Well, I've never been abroad.
No, nor have I know.
Oh, yeah, because you're on that cruise thing.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunities in life that I've wanted.
Jackie, Lynn and Sue.
Yeah,
I found these in the East End of London.
We all could have gone.
They live pretty much near Tony. Very small working class community, and what's been interesting about the film is how unmobile these three and Tony have been. Lynn has moved across London, but the other two, until quite recently anyway, stayed very much where they were born, very strongly connected to family. Family ties are the most important thing. What you're looking at now is my style of filmmaking, the portrait style I was just talking about. It's sort of repetitive, but I think it pays off with enormous value when you see this famous three-shot, the three of them sat down in the same positions, generation after generation. I think the intercut between this shot at 7, 14, and all the way through to 42 is revealing and witty and tells you so much about them just in one image. They don't like doing it very much, I have to say. Not the film, but the three-shot. They each prefer to be filmed separately. And they're all interesting people and all demand a lot of time and respect. But I sort of insist that at least for an hour they sit on the sofa. And I have two cameras, and one stays on the three-shot and the other camera moves around, and we try and get stuff. But if I get nothing, at least I get that one image of the three ladies, graceful, older, bigger if you want, but the three ladies in the same positions at these different points in their life. They're a lot of fun to do because I have a kind of sparring, boxing relationship with them, particularly with Jackie. They all have a go at me, they answer back at me. They like to, as I say, spar with me, and I like pushing them, see how far I can take them, and whether I can get some action with them. And it's interesting because it speaks to how my relationship has changed with them, all of the people over the generations. When it started, when I'm 15 years older than them, when they were 7, I was this sort of remote authority figure that they would forget as soon as I left the room. And then I think I became a sort of benevolent uncle to them when they were 14, and then a big brother when they were sort of 21, 28, and then in these more recent films, I think where contemporary, the age difference has narrowed down, and we're very much equal as colleagues in this whole enterprise, and I think we're much closer. I think the interviews are much better than they ever used to be. Not just because they're more thoughtful, articulate, or whatever. I think it's just because their relationship with me is much, much stronger, because there is this feeling of equality amongst us. We speak to each other as adults, and 15 years between you when you're in your 40s and 50s is almost meaningless. Not so when you're in your teens or early 20s. So these three are very, very important to me, as was Susie, because of the fact that they represent the women in the film. And I've always regretted that we didn't have more. Largely because I think it's been, in my lifetime, the biggest social revolution of women in society. I grew up in a culture which didn't have to deal with civil rights, didn't have to deal with Vietnam. So I think for my generation, women in society has been the biggest change, the way that women's roles have been transformed, and at home, in the marketplace, in politics, in any area of life. And it was a revolution that I think took everybody by surprise. As I said earlier, in 1964, I didn't think you could blame us if we were looking for the shop stewards or the political leaders of the year 2000. I don't think many would have thought that women would have been as powerful as they have been. And in some ways, I've been slightly unlucky with my choice of ladies. I've been lucky with them as characters and with people. They've been supportive and interesting and open, and gone through a lot of emotional twists and turns that they've shared with me. But I wasn't so lucky in that the whole issue of career and home, which is so much the drama of modern life, modern domestic life. Lynn, who we're looking at now, is really the only one who's made a career and had to bring up a family. The others tended to marry young, have children, and then do jobs to make ends meet. None of them, other than Lynn, was really fired into a career. So in some ways I missed the great, what I think is one of the great modern dramas, and has changed the way we live, the way that women's roles have changed. You need two incomes to survive now, so women have to go to work, and the effect that has on the way our children are brought up and whatever. I would have liked the opportunity to have dealt with that maybe in more depth, but I didn't have enough women, and the women I have didn't cover as many bases of that as I would have liked. But having said that, the three girls here have become incredibly interesting. And it's fascinating how different people dominate different programs, how some people have an interesting 7 years and other people have dull 7 years, and so they sort of edit themselves for me. And really the three girls at 21 and 28 really hardly paid their way. Now they've become one of the most rich and substantial parts of the film. There are two broken marriages. Jackie is a single parent. Sue now is divorced, bringing up two children. Sue looking for happiness with a man. Jackie trying to keep things together. Lynn struggling to keep a career going and bringing up the girls and trying to convince the girls to follow a career and take school seriously.
And in that perspective,
they've become three extremely interesting women and very interesting predicaments.
Doesn't worry me at all. I think my dad taught me that. He wasn't scared of death at all.
One of the hard jobs of doing these films is to really portray these people's lives in such a short time.
That one was, yes, so they'll keep that back.
This, I say, these three are some of the most interesting and substantial. I don't know how long their section is, probably about 15 minutes, and so I'm dealing with their lives from 7 to 42 in 15 minutes, and it's very, very difficult to create, an honest snapshot of their lives. And I think what's helped me do that is my experiences working in narrative fiction films, when you have to learn how to present characters, how I always want to create accessibility and sympathy with an audience for a character before you get into the trickier stuff of the drama.
Seems to be a great
and I think those lessons have served me well as we put together huge amounts of material.
That's what makes part of it hard, bringing up children nowadays.
And as the series goes on, more and more material. How do we encapsulate their lives? How do you give an honest appraisal of who they are? You could cut the segments in many, many different ways. And all it can be really is your own honest sense of who these people are.
I mean, for me, I'm lucky. Yeah, everything's
but back to the girls. As the series has gone on, and we've all become closer.
And then they've gained new ones for them.
It's become more and more stressful to do the film.
I actually envy you that.
More involved with each
I
other.
do. I envy you that because
both Lynn and Jackie have had illnesses, and
whatever the reasoning
that's
behind it,
very troubling. A question I've always been asked by American audiences whenever I've taken these films on the road or done question and answers about them, they say, "Are they all still alive?" And I say, "Well, yes, of course." And up to recently, I kind of took it as a foregone conclusion. It seemed slightly American obsession with death, if you want. I never seem to get those questions in England or Australia or whatever that I did in America. But as we all get older, then I have to deal with that possibility. I always hope that I'll be the first to go, that none of them would predecease me, but if one of them should, it's going to be incredibly difficult to deal with, because for better or worse, we are part of a family, and it would be a death in the family, and all the pain that would involve.
I think that to get married young,
just going back to the editing process, times have changed, and now, we edit on tape. I shoot everything, have done up to 42 up on videotape, but now I edit on tape, and I'll do that again.
She and Billy had divorced.
Let me just go back to the editing process. I shoot all the documentaries on film, but from now on, from 42 on, I edited them on tape on the Apted system. And that makes it much, much easier for us. We can digitize the stuff and get it all accessible to us. Before, I just had rolls and rolls of film, and I had to go back into cans of film to look out stuff, because sometimes people's stories changed. I'd look into my records and go back and find, well, they said something that was interesting about that when they were 21 and I never used it, so I have to go back onto film and look at it. But now that I have all the material on tape and I press buttons, and if I want to see what Sue here is talking about, marriage or a career, I can press a button and up it comes what she said at 14, 21 or 28. It's made that whole process much easier, and I think much more thorough. Because if you look at the films, there's always the same golden highlights, but there are changes. I do try and go back into the material every time and just see if there are bits and pieces that were never used that might be relevant as people grow up and as times change.
My children are probably owe a lot to my mum and dad.
Talking about how do I edit, I just said that I go into my records. What we do is we get transcripts made of all the interviews, and Claire and I take them off and look at them, compare them against a tape of the actual film, and see what we like and see what works and what isn't so good. Then I cut it all out and put it on sheets of paper and try and get some order of it. I cut out pieces of the old film, which are also put into print, and really get a sort of script for it. And then I give it to my editor, Kim Horton, who's been with me through 3 of these films, and he starts working on it and shaping it. So it's just a question of what I call cut and paste, of getting all the material and picking the best bits, putting them into some shape, and then really starting to do the fine work of shaping it,
when her children were old
making
enough
it
to go
seamless.
to school,
It's difficult stuff because there are 14 people in 6 generations. That's like 84 pieces that you're trying to put together. So it takes quite a bit of time. I mean, Kim is a brilliant editor. It still takes a lot of time to tell these stories. And again, it's just an interesting difference working in fiction films, in feature films, and working in documentaries, because in some ways doing documentaries is the reverse. With the story, you have a script, and your job as a director of a script, if you're doing a television film or a feature film, is you have to bring it to life. With a documentary, you're really creating a script out of what you've shot. I always find you don't really know what you have with a documentary until you've shot it, and then you begin to look at it and you begin to get a sense of it. In some ways it talks to you, and you start to fashion a script out of the raw material. You discover it as you move along. You discover things in movies as you edit them. Editing is a rewriting process in movies as well, but I think there's a big difference between the two. And in this particular project, there is a lot of material, and I think, as I started out this segment by talking about my experience in feature films, helps me put these three ladies' stories together.
And that's important.
I talk about working in features and in documentaries. I also steal from them as well. And when you're watching Jackie, who's coming up shortly, just look for the moment when she introduces her boys. She introduces them one by one as she's passing the breakfast cereal out. And I did it in a way so you wouldn't realise how many there were until she finished. Well, I did exactly the same scene in Coal Miner's Daughter, and you reveal how many children Loretta Lynn has got. You go from one to the other without knowing how many there are. So it has a kind of accumulated wit to it, I hope. Anyway, so watch for that. That's me stealing from myself. So I leave you. Enjoy Jackie.
I would like to get married when I grow up. Well, I don't know what sort of boy, but I think one that that's not got a lot of money, but has got some money, not a lot.
Have you got any boyfriends?
That's personal, isn't it? I don't know the way you come out with that. We shan't tell him, shall we?
It was horrific, really, the cake. The wedding, what happened to the wedding cake? I mean, it was sitting right sort of in between Nick and myself. And suddenly the columns just completely gave way and it just all sort of fell into one. I would say, on average, 19 is probably too young.
By the time she was 35, Jackie and Mick had divorced.
We decided ourselves, I mean, just between the two of us, we knew it wasn't going any further. We both knew, I think, that at the end of the day we would be happier leading our own lives.
My mum, because she got 5 girls, she had 7 years bad luck, that's why she's got 5 girls.
I'd like to be able to have a happy family. I mean, I know that's not possible to be happy all the time, but as much of the time that was possible.
Go through there, that's the nursery. Oh, do me a favour. Hey.
She and Mick had decided early on that they didn't want children.
Sometimes being up really, isn't it?
Basically, I would say because I'm far too selfish. I enjoy doing what I want, when I want, and how I want, and certainly at the moment, I can't see any way around that. It's not to say that that's a forever decision. Oh, and this one on. Here we go. Oh yeah. Had a brief but very sweet relationship, the result of which was Charlie. God, blonde, Charlie, you're supposed to clean your teeth, not eating the brush. It's the best thing that could have happened to me. Yeah. And I would never have believed I could have enjoyed a child as much as I enjoy him. Anybody that wanted to know just got told I was pregnant. I wasn't with the father. End of story. Oh, kiss a cuddle. I don't really want Charlie to be an only. I'd love him to have brothers and sisters, but not necessarily loads of them. Just, one would do, actually. Right, Charlie, there's yours. Oh, please eat it all up. And James.
Thanks, Mum.
And last but not least. Can you eat that one for me?
After her relationship with Charlie's father ended, she met Ian and had 2 more sons. Which one is the most like you, do you think?
At the moment, personality-wise, probably James. He's the cheeky one. He's the one that's full of confidence. Charlie's the quieter one. Charlie's the grown-up. Lee's an absolute bullet. If he wants to do something, he just does it. I mean, no fear of anything. But they're all good boys. Can take them almost anywhere. Almost anywhere, yeah.
What's the most fun?
The little things that they come out with, the sheer unexpected pleasure of them. I don't know, it's really hard to describe, but it's just, you know, they come up with so many different comments. This is actually a place called New Mains, which is about a 40-minute drive from Glasgow, and about a 15-minute drive from Motherwell.
So how did you land up here?
Well, because the boy's dad's Scottish and this is his hometown. And we decided that, I mean, Charlie was, 5, about to start school, and it was now or never. If we hadn't moved then, I don't think we would ever have done it. But obviously I'm glad we did. There's a lot more here for the boys. They've got a lot more freedom here. The way the people treat each other and talk to each other, it's more like a village. And it's a good advert, I think. Very good advert. I like it far more than I ever did London.
Not long after settling in Scotland, Ian and Jackie split up.
And when they're living on their own, although he's a regular visitor and sees the children quite often. When any couple parts, and I don't care how good or how bad the terms are, there's always a tendency for recrimination, you know, just the usual petty, this was your fault, this was, you know, and blaming each other. And it took us a long while to realise just how much the boys were listening to us. They could so easily have grown up thinking that it was their fault, and it wasn't. Not in any way, shape or form. They just happened to be the unlucky victims of it.
What would you do if you had lots of money? About me, £2. I would buy myself a new nice house, you know, one that's all nice and comfy.
When Ian and I split up, I actually went into temporary accommodation, and I got housed a couple of miles from here. But that was, I mean, it was furnished because I didn't have anything to take with me. I was there 7 weeks, and they offered me this one with the help of family and friends, and word goes out, Jackie's needing some stuff, and it all just suddenly arrived.
The part is that you don't help them, they'd sort of die soon, wouldn't they?
I think it might be a bit low on the ground, that stuff. I don't think it's quite enough up there, do you?
I don't cope financially. Without my mother-in-law stepping in to fill the gap, I wouldn't be coping. It's really hard to explain to anyone who's not had to do it. But you get to a point where either that bill doesn't get paid or your children don't eat. So obviously your children eat, which means that either my mother-in-law pays the bill or she makes sure that my food's in for the following week so I can pay the bill. But it's not easy to live like it.
Come on, Swans.
She's brilliant. If I could have chosen a mother-in-law, she was the one I would have chosen. She's great for me. She's absolutely brilliant with the children. And she's just always there when I need her to be.
You leave him alone.
At the moment, I mean, a career's probably about the first thing from my mind. And I don't really know what I'm aiming for, except to get the house together. My father had a reasonably good education. He never went to the local comprehensive, but at the same time, I don't think he was too worried which way I decided to go. Oh, I've no doubt I could have done more. Certainly when I was younger, it was probably laziness that stopped me.
Oh.
When we did the last programme, I think there was actually a comment my father made at the time was maybe he should have pushed me a little bit harder. And I think maybe, in retrospect, he should have done. And that's probably the one thing that I will do with mine that he didn't do with me. I think I shall push him just a little bit harder.
James, you watch, you're catching up to him. Go on, Lee.
I was working up here until very recently, but they discovered that I've got rheumatoid arthritis. So at the moment that's put work on hold. It's painful, very painful, particularly my hands, my feet, my shoulders. It can be almost crippling at times. I get tired, and that obviously makes life awkward at home with the children. No, you're not. Well, there's certainly no cure. At the moment, they're trying to stem it so that it gets no worse. Whether we're having much success at that, it's still quite early days, so I really don't know at the moment. I certainly don't feel that great at the moment.
Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, go!
Swimming is one of the best things for arthritis. It can help as long as you don't overdo it. But having said that, I'll pay for it tomorrow. I'll be stiff tomorrow. I shouldn't really lift Lee. If Lee wants a cuddle, he should sit on my lap and I should cuddle him on my lap. But how do you tell a 4-year-old, no, you can't lift them? I mean, I can't stop being his mum just because I'm not well.
Do you remember those scenes at 21 when you were showing them round the house at East Tilbury?
Right, yeah.
Boy, we've gone a long way, haven't we?
Just a bit. Oh, God. Yeah, in fact, don't flash back to that at this point, please. Just the double chins and the age and... I mean, the funny part about it is you don't think about your age until you think about something like that. I mean, when you think how many years ago that was, and it was all so new and so fresh, and yet I've done exactly the same now. I've just started all over again, but with 3 children in tow this time. But that's life.
So much hope then, wasn't there?
There still is. Oh, there still is. Don't make that mistake, Mike. Well, I am no way. I am down and I'm depressed about my illness, but I'm certainly not down and depressed about my life. I will not. Nothing's going to do that. I've got 3 wonderful boys. I've got a loving family around me. I mean, I'm lucky. For a lot of people that are damn sight worse off than I am. A lot of people.
Nigel, I'd like to find out...
Back again with Nick from Yorkshire. My colleague researcher Gordon McDougall found Nick in remote part of Yorkshire. Again, the idea of counterpoints. We wanted to find someone who was brought up 1,000,000 miles away from a metropolis. Someone who found their strength and values from the land, from the countryside. Who had a whole different rhythm and pace of upbringing from the others. And I think that's why the series has ultimately been successful. Because there are so many stories contained in these 14 people. And audiences can always find some body, some event, some relationship, some idea even, in the body of the film that they can identify with. I think it's an enormously audience-friendly project, because these are ordinary people, not eccentrics or whatever. I think the power of it is that you can identify, and their stories become your stories, and at its best, I think it makes you ask questions about your own life, your own development. When do you mature? These people mature at different times in their life. You ask yourself, when did I mature? And also I get enormously different responses from audiences about what they think of the film. Not whether they like or dislike it, but what they think it's about. I mean, some find it sad and depressing. Others find it inspiring or affirming. And usually I find that reflects what they think of their own life. So what I ask of an audience, I sort of have to ask of myself. You know, what do I get out of it? Who do I identify with? And in some ways I identify strongly with at least a part of Nick's life. I grew up in suburban London. So my association with country life is very flimsy. But like Nick, I left my roots, my country, to come and work in America. I too was homesick for where I grew up, and desperately and continually hang on to the strength that I find from my roots. I've lived in America for 20 years, but
His English-born wife, Jackie, is a
I still see myself as English, and I still often go back there, not just physically, but in my mind, to figure out who I am and what I want and who I've become. And he went through the same process of disorientation, of being in a different culture and not really quite understanding that culture, even if you share the language, and then slowly becoming more familiar with it. But that sense of disorientation, which can be very confusing and uncomfortable. Just as with Tony, I made a mistake and second-guessed him about what might become of him, I also sort of second-guessed Nick to my cost when it came to him and girls and marriage. When he was 28, he met Jackie, who you see here, and I filmed her. And I don't think I edited her in a very favourable or nice light. I think I could have been a bit more compassionate about her, and she was very cross about it, and she vowed that after 28 she would never take part in the film again, because she'd come out of the film in an unsympathetic way, so she thought, and I think she had a point. Again, I was being clever. I was thinking, well, I don't think this marriage will last, so let's second-guess it, let's preempt it, let's see how smart I can be. And I think I shot myself in the foot, because not only did she refuse to take part in any subsequent films, but she also wouldn't let their son take part in it, and that would have been a very valuable thing to have had in the film. So I hope I've learned my lesson. It was interesting that it was in 28 that I made my mistakes. Maybe I've got wiser as I've got older. A couple of years ago, at the British Academy, they were giving out the Best Photography Award for documentaries. And that year, Jesse Turner, who photographs the Up films, won it, and they were showing as examples of his work, and he really won it for this series, these magnificent country scenes, some of which come up now, some of which you've already been looking at. So it's worth spending a moment talking about the people who make the film and how important they are to it, because most of them have been with me a long time. George started with me on 21 Up, comes through 28, 35 to 42, and will go on. Kim Horton has edited since 28. Nick Steer has done the sound since 28. Jackie, George's wife, has been my assistant on it since, I think, 21. And Claire has been with me, and I think it just helps us get the programs made, frankly. The fact that we are a recognizable unit, we're a family unit, so that when we show up every 7 years, there aren't many new faces to show, and everybody knows each other. I think that's one of the reasons I can persuade people to take part in these films. Just look at this shot. This is live filming in Yorkshire. I remember the first day of 42 Up, we had an 8:30 call, and I arrived from California the day before to start shooting, and at 8:30 in England in January it was pitch black and raining. I thought, what have we here? What have I come to? And the stuff you're looking at now was the very first stuff we shot on 42 Up. But George and everybody else through it all, soldier on, we shoot through rain and snow and whatever, and just have to get it done. But the kind of familiarity that the subjects have with the crew, I think really helps not just their decision to be in it, but the interviews, the intimacy with which we work. And again, I think since the quality of the interview is what this whole series is about, because I know them so well and we've been through so much for so long, I can ask them things and elicit from them things you wouldn't normally get in a journalistic documentary environment. The fact that George is always behind the camera and Nick is always with the microphone, I think, makes it more comfortable and relaxed. These images we're looking at now, I think, are images that really helped win George his big award. Much deserved. With Nick, one of the interesting things, since he lives in America, is really to decide every 7th year, where to shoot him. Do I shoot him in America where he lives, or do I bring him back? In 42, I decided to bring him back. It seemed to me, not that he was planning to come back, so I sort of artificially created the visit, but nonetheless, I know he very much wanted to come back, and it was just a question of finance. But it was a very important time for him to be back here. They were selling the farm. His father wasn't well, and he wanted to show his family off to his parents. So, in this particular time, we decided to come back. At 28 and 35, when his life was changing and developing in America, then I filmed him there, and I'm sure that at 49, God willing, that we'll shoot him in America too, but it's always a challenge and a decision to know where to film someone who's living abroad, and how much it becomes artificial if I bring them back to England, and how much I'm compromising any kind of reality or authenticity that film might have. But I think if the reasons to come back are strong enough, then it's probably worth doing. So that's Nick, who's been very endearing, and just as I feel close to him, I think he feels close to me. We have an email relationship, two professional men trying to build a career in a foreign country away from home. So I think we get kind of close. So we do have an ongoing relationship apart from the films. So that's Nick for you, and I'll join you for another traveller, for Paul, in Australia.
In lots of other ways, it's really important that people are always thinking about what's happening around them and how they have to react to it. Beauty's transient, so maybe we can come by here and visit it. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be permitted to be here very much.
I don't like the big boys.
We found Paul at the children's home in London. He was a classmate of Simon, who we've already seen. And it's been extremely interesting following Paul's journey, both physically and emotionally. He emigrated to Australia, so we've been pursuing him around Australia since he was 14 years old. And I brought him back at the age of 21 and took him to the children's home with Simon, and they both visited it. It was almost a shell, barely anything left, but it was interesting to see them revisit a time of such importance for them. So Paul has taken me all round Australia. When he was 28, he sold up and got a van, and we went round a bit of the country with him. I tend to spend more time with him because it's such a long journey to get there that it's hardly worth coming back unless I spend 4 or 5 days. Whereas I spend maybe 2 days with the others. With him I'll spend longer. I also brought him back when he was 35, again because some of his family were sick and ailing, and he wanted to visit them. He felt disconnected from them and wanted to show his wife and his children where he had grown up. And I suppose he's done things that he might never have done if he hadn't been in the film. I don't think they could have afforded to have come back to England unless I had bankrolled it to film them at 35. So, again, it creates something artificial, but it's something they wanted to do. They didn't have the means to do it, and it gave such an interesting perspective on their lives. And it gives me some scale and visuals in the film, although the power of the film is the interview, is what the people say and how they look. I don't think it would work at all if there wasn't something to finesse that, something to lighten it, some sense of time and place. I mean, the film is often criticized for not being political enough. You don't really know what was going on. At the time I made the film, you don't know who was Prime Minister of England or who was President of the United States. In a sense, the people live in some sort of vacuum, but then again, how much ground can you cover? It's their emotional development and how the world impacts on them, not necessarily what the world is like at this particular time. And so I'm looking really just for snapshots of the world at this moment when I'm with them. I'm not looking for a comprehensive history of England over the last 40 years that I've been involved in the film, but in some ways it's sort of become that, and it's become that out of the corner of its eye, the way people dress, allusions they make, the way they have their hair and all this. It does speak of the way we live, and I think in no small way it's become a sort of roadmap of England since the 60s, without ever overtly dealing with political or economic or cultural issues. It just deals with these people at the center of their world, and whatever they harvest in for me, I use, but I never go outside their world. I never ask them questions about politics or such, unless they are political, unless they're interested in it. So with Paul, his life is also, apart from being a physical roller coaster, going all over Australia and back to England, it's been an emotional roller coaster. Through his beginnings in the children homes, to emigrating to Australia with his father, then his early life as an adult, and then hooking up with Sue, who was, I think, to become one of the foundations of his life. And it's so interesting to see particularly how he matured, at what generation he matured, how thoughtful he became, maybe later than some. And again, I think it makes you ask yourself, well, when did I grow up? When did I become self-aware? When did I become mature? When did I gather in some view of the world? Some people mature, become adult quite young, others don't. And I think watching the film, maybe subconsciously or consciously, you can ask yourself that question. One of the interesting things also about Paul in Australia is I always thought it would be fun to see all the programs to get the real sense of this development that I'm talking about, the maturing development, the physical development, the emotional development. And in Australia, one company decided over 5 weeks to show all the films in their entirety. Now, that's a good DVD idea, if ever I heard of it. And the films are really quite different, because I reckon that I chuck out 80% of the stuff I shoot each time. So when I do 42 up, I chuck out 80% of what I shot at 35 and only keep the very best or the most significant pieces of 35. And when I do 49 up, then I'll chuck out 80% of 42. So there's a huge amount of difference of material in all the films. So although there is some continuing material, the highlights, the best of, if you want to call it that, the core bits, the rest of it changes all the time and is constant. So each film has a different tone to it, and one of the challenges for me, and I suppose nerve, anxiety making and fun, all those three things, is you never know what the tone is going to be. You never know what's going to come out, what the people are going to talk about, or is there going to be some binding theme? You never know it until it's in front of you. You know, with 7+7, there was a kind of awkward adolescence about it. It was, I think, a pretty frightful program, trying to make teenagers in 1971 or whatever it was answer in more than monosyllables. Although when you put the material of 7 and the material of 14, then it had some power, but the material at 14 was pretty dreadful. At 21, there's a kind of brightness, a sense of promise about it, and in some ways an arrogance to the 21-year-olds. Life is ahead of them, and they'll be able to achieve whatever. So there's that kind of brightness. At 28, that's the first sense, really, of a maturity. It is, as I like to say, they're in the bathwater of life. They've started to make commitments to people, commitments to jobs. And you get the sense that if they haven't started doing well in a relationship or started doing well in a job, maybe they never will. So there's a kind of awareness of the beginnings of awareness of mortality, that life is it's a long journey, but it's 70, so you better get on with it. And then, speaking of that, at 35, I was surprised by how much mortality was a part of it. A lot of them were losing their parents, and so they were very aware of death and all that, and I was very surprised, and I think it made for a slightly depressing program. And at 42, I personally find 42 much more optimistic. People are coming to terms with life, not in a negative, accepting way, but in a realization of who they are and what they have and what can be done and what can't be done. So it's interesting if one were to watch all of them, God forbid at one sitting, but over a period of time, how different they would all be and how much material that is only ever used once you would see. And as I say, that I never know what the film is going to be about when I start it. I have no idea what's going to be the binding theme, if indeed there will be one at 49, what is going to be in their minds, what they're going to be wanting to talk about. So that adds a kind of texture and excitement to it for me. So this is Paul, and again, I don't know what his life will be like in 3 or 4 years' time, and I'll be approaching 49 up, but again I have to decide whether to go to Australia to film him or do something else with him. But he and Sue have always been very cooperative, which I appreciate, because I think he's not particularly articulate and it's awkward for him to be interviewed. But I think the family thing has a lot to do with it. He likes to keep in touch, and I also like to do things for them. For example, whenever I've got a movie opening, when I did the Bond film, I had a special screening of it for all of them and their children and their friends, so it's nice to be able to do things for them, so it's not always me asking stuff of them. And so whenever I go to Australia or in any other business, I always try and see them both, and we chat, and again, I'm not asking for favors or whatever, so it's just nice to keep the relationship going. Which brings me on to John, Andrew, and Charles, who I affectionately call my 3 wise men. We chose them because they came from the very wealthy part of English society. They were at expensive preparatory schools at the age of 7, doing foreign languages, exotic foreign trips, and learning Latin and whatever, and genuinely being groomed for life. Although I claim that the film does deal with ordinary life and ordinary people, I slightly regret some of the choices I made, not of the people, because they're all delightful and helpful and whatever, but I wonder whether I did work more on the margins of English society, because I was really trying to make a political point, and maybe this is the time to talk about the politics. Granada was a very left-wing company, and I think when you look at 7 Up, you can see that it's a barely disguised political diatribe against the class system. It's fine by me. That's why I was inspired to do it. Although I'd done pretty well by the class system, I was middle class, but I'd gone to a good school and to Cambridge University. And I'd always been troubled by the social system in Great Britain, how the accident of birth gave you status. And I couldn't help seeing how much wastage of talent there was. People who were clearly gifted never had the opportunity that other people who are born into money or privilege or to caring parents or whatever. It seemed there was a tremendous waste of talent. And I think that's what drove me into the film. That's what the origins of the film were. And I think these three gentlemen stand at the edge of that. And I think that's why I've had the most difficult relationships with them. I think they object to the program more than any. Not so much Andrew, who you're watching now, but John and Charles, both of whom have been in and out of the program and are currently out of it. I still think that class is still the spine of the film. I think that's its underbelly, but I don't really think that's the power of it anymore. And I didn't realize this until 28 Up, and it sort of happened by chance. I was living in Hollywood, and people asked me what was this I was doing, going back and doing this film, and I explained, I said, oh, let's have a look at it. So I was reluctant to bring it across, because I thought, well, people in America aren't going to understand it. How could you understand the English class system if you haven't grown up in it? How could you understand the kind of social, educational lingo? How would you know the difference between private schools, public schools, whereas in fact private schools are private, public schools are not public, comprehensive schools, grammar schools. How would you understand the class system unless it was really in your blood? So I was very reluctant to show it to anybody who wasn't English, but I did show it to friends and they liked it, and they said, well, show it here. So I put it in for the Los Angeles Film Festival and the New York Film Festival, and it was accepted, and it was a great success. And I realized, well, these films aren't what I think they are. I thought I was making this political document, but I'm not at all. I had to reevaluate it. I was making, I think, a humanistic film, a film that had its roots in the human condition, not just in England. A film about growing up, about success, failure, promise, disappointment, all the things that we all have to go through, bringing up children, not bringing up children, everything that's common to us all. Now, whether with these three it was the politics of the film that offended them, I don't know. But it's sad that John and Charles particularly aren't in it. Andrew, I said, is loyal, and Jane, his wife, is very loyal. They find it awkward, and they do it for me. Because when you lose people, you lose the contrast to comparisons, which is the real stuff of the film. It's a mystery to me why Charles doesn't want to be in it. The irony is that he works in documentary films. He's been very successful as a producer at the BBC, and then he has an executive job at Channel 4. So he's part of this world, but he chooses not to do it. And I try and keep an open mind, because hopefully one day I'll persuade him to do it. John has been in and out. John wouldn't do 28. He did 35 because he wanted me to help him with his charitable work in Bulgaria. So we did do that, and we went with him to Bulgaria to film him then. He doesn't like me very much, so he would only do it if Claire did the filming, which she did, and did it very well. But John certainly doesn't seem to care for the program, and unless I can find a way of persuading him, I don't think he's coming back. I live in hope. I have relationships with them. I don't cut them out of my life because they won't do the film, because I hope one day, as I say, it'll change. One problem I do have, which is sort of slightly solved by a couple of them not doing it, is the films have so much material, and I don't want the films to run more than the 2.25 hours they do, because I think you can't watch this sort of stuff much more than that. They do edit themselves. Because John and Charles aren't in it, I don't really belabor the point. I don't give them very much screen time, and I save the screen time for people who have got more ongoing stories. But nonetheless, it's good to have them, good to hear their voices, even if I can't update them, because all the way through, whenever they're on, they express themselves very well, they're very provocative, and they do deal with the whole issue, is life preordained? Their laundry list of schools and colleges and jobs. Is it true for everybody? What does the film tell us about that? If you have this kind of good fortune, gifts early on in life, does it help you see your life through? And if you're at the other end of the scale and fairly clueless about what you want to do, does that necessarily mean you won't have a satisfactory or successful life? And a successful life doesn't have to be in terms of worldly success or money or career. It can be anything. It can be a happy family life, obviously. It can be peace of mind or whatever. So these three gentlemen, the three wise men, these guys pretty much have done what they said they'd do. And in the blue-collar area, it's, I suppose, also true that most of them have stayed put amongst family. In an environment they feel comfortable, it gives them strength. And it's hard for me to understand why they haven't moved on, but then I'm a middle-class neurotic who success is judged largely by one's work, but that's not the only criterion. So I don't know what the film tells us in there, but certainly it's very vivid, these three young men at 7, recounting what they're going to do, and they actually did do it. So I live in hope that they'll come back, and that the whole team will be together. And I was asked whether I'll go on with the films, and I always say yes. The only reason I might not go on with it is if enough of them won't do it, that it becomes an embarrassment, and that I have to spend my whole time explaining why people won't be in it. But also I try and persuade people to be in it any way I can. I mean, with Andrew, I let Andrew see the film before I finalise it, so if there's stuff he doesn't like, and I offer that to anybody who really wants it. If they make an issue of it, of not being sure that they like certain stuff, then I will take it out. I have to be on my best behaviour in that sense, because I want them to come back. I can't play fast and loose with promises with them. So if they want something, then they have it. But so far I haven't been able to persuade Charles to come back really at all as an adult, but I'm going to keep trying. The daughter of a former ambassador to Bulgaria. So that's all I have to say on these three, so I'll see you in a minute with Neil.
He decided not to take part in this film.
When I'm in school, I'm going to the dragon school. I might. And I might go to, after I might go to Charterhouse, Marlborough. And I can't remember all other places, but because Mummy's got so many, but those are some of them.
What about university, Charles?
I might go to Oxford.
Charles went to Marlborough, but he didn't go to Oxford. In fact, instead he went to Durham University.
So I'm pleased I didn't, because it's very much a sort of set of Marlborough prep school, Marlborough, Oxbridge, conveyor belt, get shoved out at the end.
And what did Charles want to do?
I'd say probably scribbling away in some basement of some London newspaper or something.
Charles did scribble away for an East London newspaper. He then moved on to the BBC, where he became a producer. He's now editor of science documentaries at Channel 4. He decided not to take part in this documentary.
Well, we were 10, we got swords, and then...
We chose Neil from Liverpool because we wanted to get away from London, from some of the children, into the suburbs. Neil grew up in a Liverpool the suburbs of a big city, in this case Liverpool, and more into the middle class. As I said, we dealt with the very wealthy in London and the working class in London, and so we wanted to ring the changes a bit. Neil went to school in Liverpool, and he was at school with Peter, who is also part of the Up film. You glimpse him briefly on a bicycle. Now, I've cut Peter out of the film because he didn't take part after 28, and because his story isn't ongoing for me, I've moved on. But losing Peter was a tremendous disappointment. Just as there are not enough women in the film, I think there aren't enough people from the middle class. As I said in the previous chapter, I think I operate too much on the margins of English society and not in the middle, because the changes that Neil and Peter went through are incredibly dramatic, typical of so many of their generation. Neil's story is very particular to him. Peter's, I think, is more general. They went through school, passed their exams, went into colleges, did well. And when they came out in the early 80s, they found there were no jobs. All the promises that a degree would get you, a good job, a job you wanted, had come to nothing. The roof had fallen in under the years of Margaret Thatcher's government. Money had been taken out of the social services in deference to free market forces, to capitalist endeavour, to the health and growth of the money-spinning business community. So money was moved from social services, from education, from health and from the arts. There were fewer and fewer jobs, and if you'd been educated or trained into those professions, like Neil hoped to be into the arts and Peter hoped to be into teaching, suddenly there were fewer and fewer jobs, and in some cases no jobs. When 28 Up was on, Peter gave vent to these anti-government, anti-Thatcher feelings. And for doing so, he just got torn apart by the press, particularly by the popular press. He took his position as an underpaid teacher, and he was laid into for expressing these views, his anti-government views. The press said, how can someone like that, with these cynical views of society, be allowed to teach our kids? Well, that was the end of Peter and the Up films. He looked at this stuff, he read the newspapers the following morning and said, I don't have to deal with this kind of venom for simply expressing my views that he expressed under my prompting. So I lost him. I don't think I'll ever get him back, although, again, as with the others, I have a fruitful relationship with him, and we're very friendly. But it was a pity to lose him. I regret the loss of him more than anybody, because unlike any of the others, he completely changed his life. In his 30s, he gave up teaching, he went back to college, got a law degree, and started working in public law, really changing his life. He remarried, had a new family, and really transformed himself. I did try and get him, but I have to tell you, and I have one anecdote about that to show how far I'll go to try and persuade these good souls to be in my film. I went to Liverpool at the time of doing 35 Up and to talk to him, to take him out to dinner, and we went out to a restaurant and sat down, and first thing he said to me was, why don't you make good movies like Alan Parker? And he recounted all Parker's terrific movies and certainly suggested that I wasn't up to that. So I took it all on the chin and eventually came back to Hollywood. And Alan is a friend of mine, so I rang Alan up and said, look, can you do me a favour? And I told him what it was, and he's always been a good friend to me and a very great supporter of the Up films, so he rang Peter up. And I would love to have been a fly on the wall. And the phone rang in his Liverpool apartment, and the voice at the end said, Alan Parker here. I would love to have seen Peter, and Alan tried gamely to persuade Peter to be in the films, but he failed. But he tried, so there's no stunt I won't pull to try and get them in. But that was Peter's story. As I said, he's barely glimpsed in it now, more's the pity, but it doesn't seem worth spending screen time on him when he doesn't have anything to contribute. So Neil is the subject here, and his roller coaster of a life has been one of the most memorable parts of the film. From the bright 7-year-old who everybody wanted to cuddle or take home, to the down and out of 28 and 35 who you wondered whether he'd ever make it into the next film. He has had the most huge of the audience responses, and again we've moved heaven and hell to protect his anonymity. And it's been difficult dealing with it because Neil is very willing to take part, but he doesn't want any part of the media, he doesn't want any celebrity and whatever. And this is one of the tough things, I think, why it's difficult for these good souls to be in a film, because they do have a certain celebrity, but it's the worst kind of celebrity. It's celebrity without power or money. They're very, very well known for 6 or 7 weeks once the film comes out, and then life goes its course, but for that time they can barely go out without being buttonholed. And that's very annoying, and as I said, they get not much out of it. It's just their generosity of spirit and, frankly, their courage that makes them take part in it. But Neil, for one, dislikes the notoriety. He spends a lot of time out of touch, Neil, has done in the past, but it's not difficult to track him down. People ask me, how do we? Well, the United Kingdom is small. It's smaller than California, so there's not too much ground to travel. And we keep in touch with him through the social services. He gets his unemployment money or whatever, so we leave messages. With the social services, he picks the messages up and then calls us. Claire Lewis spends a lot of time fostering her relationship with him and keeping in touch with him, but when he disappears, we can usually find him. It's interesting here, this piece, which I think is one of the best structural ideas we ever had in the film, which is splitting up Bruce's wedding, the first part being just with Bruce, and the second part when you reveal that Neil was there. And this relationship between Bruce and Neil is unique in the film. It's the only relationship that has ever kind of blossomed or been created out of the film. They all know each other, they have social events, and as I said, I got them all together at 21 and they were all together at 7, but I've never bothered to bring them together other than that, because it just seems inappropriate and artificial. But this relationship has developed through the social side of the Up films, and I think has been very fruitful, particularly for Neil. So I was very thrilled that Neil did show up at Bruce's wedding and that we were able to introduce this relationship into the film, because I think it's been a very significant part of Neil's life and speaks a lot of the sort of man that Bruce is. One of the problems of dealing with Neil is it good for his health to be in the films? He's always refused medication and has preferred to soldier on without any medical help. But we took advice, and the best advice we could get was if Neil wanted to be in the films, then it would do him no harm. And it would maybe allow him to get a lot of stuff on his mind. And if you watch Neil, you can see how articulate and interesting he is. So we took the advice, and we've always put him in the films. Just as I said when we were looking at Nick, how I related to his issue and to his leaving England, I relate to Neil, but in a different way, from a different point of view. I see him from the position of a parent. I have 3 sons, and I look at Neil and I can see how parental pressure and peer pressure can affect someone. I know Neil's parents are very decent, responsible people, but you can see how the 7-year-old we're looking at now, and you look at him at 14 and 21, and that sense of disappointment when he didn't achieve what he set out to achieve. He didn't get to Oxford or Cambridge, or exams were difficult for him. In a sense, too much was asked of him. To me, that's a very powerful lesson as a parent. And I think in some ways that's been, for me, the most poignant and important lesson I've learned from making the films and watching the films is how difficult it is to bring children up and how careful you have to be, and how some of them, Jackie talks about how she wished her father had put her under more pressure, and maybe others were under too much pressure, and I think I had that perspective when I look at the films and see what success or failure I've had as a parent. But anyway, 42 was a thrilling and positive part of Neil's story, as he seems to have recovered his equilibrium with a little help from his friends, how he's got a much stronger sense of himself. And particularly, as I was saying, his relationship with Bruce, which seems to have been very fruitful and unique to the program.
I value all experience, and I feel as part of my life.
So Neil has been an unusual life for me to deal with, and a very complicated life, and in many ways I feel ill-equipped to have dealt with it. These films, all of them, are widely used for professional purposes, for social studies, education, for psychology. And I remember a few years ago I was invited to Harvard to show the films, and I was terrified because they asked me to show it to the various departments. And I thought, now I'm going to get caught out, because I was having to speak to professional people and reveal my ignorance of my subject matter. I'm a filmmaker. I have a passion and I have a love of my subjects, but I have no training to deal with some of the issues that come up. I'm not a professional psychologist or professional educationalist, or I've never done social studies, and yet here's my work being used by better men than me to further their studies. But I dodged the bullets at Harvard and got away with it. And my feeling is that all I can bring to the film is just my skill as a filmmaker, such as it is, and an honest, truthful appraisal of who these individuals are. I'm interested in them, I care about them. I don't want to be judgmental about them. I try and resist that, although it can be difficult from my maybe over-neurotic view of life. But basically, it's my job to present an accurate portrait of them as I possibly can, and let other people make what they will out of it and get what they can out of it. It's very flattering that these films are so widely seen and widely used, and not just for entertainment purposes. And I used to beat myself up on it, but I thought, no, take the position that I am the ordinary man in the street who has no specialized knowledge, and I care about these people, and here these people are, and let the film speak for itself, and whatever an audience want to derive from it, let them so derive. So Neil's story has been painful, but also an inspiration, and again, we keep in touch with him as much as we can. He comes to our functions. He came to my screening of the Bond film, but wouldn't stay for it. He still doesn't like noisy things, and if Bond is nothing else, it's noisy, so he made a polite appearance and then left. But there have been times when you wonder whether you'd ever see him again, but he's valiantly survived, and so he goes on. And I think he'll always be, in some ways, the foundation of the series, its centerpiece.
I think it's looking to the future.
Well, that's a change for the better, isn't it?
Well, perhaps that's just because I'm getting old. But I think it's maybe believing that things can't be so bad in the future as they have been in the past. And I think there are certain short-term objectives I have here in Hackney, and if I can achieve a few of those, then I'll be pleased.
So Neil is the last of the subjects, but it isn't the end of the film, because in 42 Up I change style. And for the first time, I asked them all the same question and intercut their answers, all at the same age. I asked them about the class system, because that's the underbelly of the film. It's what inspired the film, and it's always going to be there, and I wanted to know what they all thought about it. Particularly as I'm a stranger in the United Kingdom now. I haven't lived there for 20 or so years, so I'm not quite sure how things are at the moment. People say, is this a portrait of England? And I say, well, I think maybe not. I think this is a portrait of English society for this generation. People born in the late 50s, like my group. If you were born 10 years later, it might be different. Maybe the class barriers have begun to fall. Society is more relaxed. There are more opportunities. Jobs are spread out. The accident of birth isn't such a powerful influence. There are more opportunities. The citadel of the class system has been stormed. So I was just curious for their perspective on this. And I don't know whether it works or not, but it was interesting, as I said, to go out of style and to do a sort of round robin and have them all at 42 answering the same question. I also asked them one other question. We'll get to that in a minute, so stay with me.
You will go that far and you will stop there and you will not go any further. If the money's there, then maybe that would give you the advantage, but I certainly don't think, I mean, it might get you into a better school, it might get you into somebody's law firm, or if the money's there, but I don't know that it's class as such anymore.
Nowadays, the only excuse for class is ignorance, if that's an excuse. There's so much worldwide communication and intra-national communication that people should know enough about how others live for this not to need to be the case.
But I think it does still exist to a certain extent. And I would love to see it change, but I'm not sure how it can really be done.
I think wherever you are, there are a range of opportunities, and they are obviously limited, more limited depending on what from your background. I'm hoping education is one way out.
I don't think it's like England exactly, but I think it's definitely a class. Maybe I've got the wrong view what class is, but I think there's definitely an upper class and a lower class here.
Yes, there is a society of class. There is the advantaged and the disadvantaged, but even from the advantaged, we have failures.
Look at the royal families born into. They're given all that money, wealth, privilege, but look at them. What a mess. I mean, I wouldn't want to swap any of that for some of theirs. I mean, it's, money, wealth, position doesn't give you happiness or health or anything like that.
So the question I was always asked most is, what effect being in the program has had on them, on their lives. And usually the question is asked in a sort of hostile way, suggesting that I've spoiled their lives or caused them some sort of pain. If I thought I'd done that, I wouldn't carry on with the project. On the other hand, I know it must have left its mark. How could it not? If you put your lives up for public examination every 7 years and you have to account for what you've done or what you've not done, and you're reaching audiences all over the world, millions of people, then it must leave some sort of mark on you. I don't believe it's changed their lives radically. I mean, no one's got a job or found a partner that I know of as a result of the film, and the only relationship that flourished in the film was that nurturing one between Bruce and Neil. But it clearly has left some sort of mark, so I felt it was only fair to ask them and see what they had to say about it. And we got a variety of intriguing answers, not all negative, not all positive. But one thing they didn't say, which I would like to say, is how courageous they are to do this, and how grateful I am for their endless patience and their contribution. Obviously, without them, we wouldn't have anything. And now and again, people who write about the film do say this, and I'm always warm to that. The courage of sitting down in front of a camera and opening your heart and soul is something that takes some doing, and I thank them all for doing it. So, as they answer this and we come to the end of the film, what does it all add up to? I think everyone who sees it has their own opinion. My opinion, I think life throws you so many curveballs that you can't predict what's going to happen. Certainly in the generation this group of people grew up in, some of their lives were limited, some of their options were contained, and they shouldn't have been, and others maybe had many more chances than others. But if there's any great truth for me in it, it's maybe that inner character doesn't change. If you're shy or reserved at 7, maybe you always will be. If you're an extrovert at 7, maybe you always will be. Each of us look into our own lives, and you think of yourself at 7. I look at myself at 7 and think, how the hell did I get to where I am? I thought I was shy and frightened of my own shadow, and here I am doing this job and whatever, but you never know. All I can say, it's been thrilling to be part of this project. It's, I think, the most important work I'll ever do, more important than any of the movies I'll ever make. I think this has a resonance and a longevity that more than anything else I'll ever do. I'll carry it on as long as I can keep standing, as I say, as long as there's enough of them to make it worthwhile. And I'd like to thank all of them for being in it, everybody who's helped me make it over the years, the first run for this DVD, and to Granada Television, who have supported and financed the program from its very inception. So I hope you stay with it, and I hope you enjoy it, and look forward to the next one. Thank you.
And Bruce. Susie. Jackie and her friends. Give me a child until he is 7, and I will give you the man. This has been a glimpse of Britain's future.